If you're listening to this, the chances are you've been doing the work, self-help or therapy, or you've recently had an aha moment where you realize maybe you struggle with low self-esteem, not quite knowing your value in this world. It's usually at this point when people begin to look for answers. And of course, a great place to start is having an idea of what low self-esteem is. In this episode, I'm going to talk you through what low self-esteem is, and I'm going to heavily link it to what unconsciously keeps low self-esteem going, because I know that many of you have this awareness. You can see your patterns, but it feels really difficult to actually break free. And I will end the episode with some really important reminders for you if you're currently doing the work, reparenting, learning to love yourself, learning to accept yourself, and wanting to change how you're showing up in the world. I'm Carly Ann. I'm a psychotherapist specializing in self-esteem and self-worth. I work with people who appear capable and self-aware on the outside, but internally you're struggling. You're struggling with self-doubt, rumination, perfectionism, your relationships, overwhelm. You may have got to the point where you feel like, I know that I'm worthy, yet you still find yourself repeating patterns that undermine your confidence and your relationships. And that is what I specialize in. That's what I'm best at. And that's what this podcast is here to help as well. Low self-esteem or low self-worth is something that many of us are living with quietly and silently. And trust me when I say this used to be a really big issue for me. And I still see it showing up at times. And the tools that I have and the information that I have that I share here and within the community, they make a difference. They work and I need them. The thing about it is that you don't always know that you have low self-esteem, or maybe you do know and you're masking it. But it's important to know that self-esteem, let's start with that. What is self-esteem? It is how you view yourself. It is the opinion that you have of yourself, how you assess your value. So low self-esteem is when a person is consistently feeling like they're not good enough. You're focusing on your flaws. You're doubting your abilities, your worth. You're doubting yourself as a partner, a friend, a daughter, a son. You doubt yourself. High self-esteem is when a person values themselves. They know their value. They accept both their strengths and their weaknesses, and they feel worthy of respect and kindness without being arrogant. And I know that's important to say, because I cannot tell you how many people across the years have said to me, I want to build my self-esteem, but I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to be cockedy. I don't want to be cocky. I don't want to be too confident. And we not too confident. I don't want to be like, the overly cocky confident. And I get that. That's not what we're aiming for here. Okay. We're aiming for someone who knows their value. So that's low self-esteem versus high self-esteem. And I want to dive deeper into low self-esteem because that's what this episode is about. And if you see yourself in what I'm describing, do not fear, because we know that with the right interventions and the willingness to do the work from you, we know that we can change how we view ourselves. We can change our self-esteem. Low self-esteem is not just feeling nervous before a date or a big presentation or being upset after making a mistake. That's normal. We feel our feelings no matter our self-esteem, but it goes deeper than that. People with low self-esteem can really get very, very close to their feelings or very far away. We can be someone who gets overly panicky, overly anxious in triggering situations, or someone who just distances ourselves, avoids, kind of numbs out, that kind of things. It's just deeper than going through a feeling, going through an emotion. It's those things that the triggers are intensified. I mentioned like the big presentation or being upset after making a mistake. It's those triggers and they are intensified where you're unable to see clearly. and you're in a lot of distress, you're feeling high levels of anxiety or feeling awful, like you're bad or you're a bad person, criticizing yourself. Now, my work, I don't know if have told you this. I think, many of you that have followed my work, you'll know that I'm a CBT therapist and somatic attachment therapist. And a lot of my work is influenced by the work of psychologist Melanie Fennell. So my take is that low self-esteem means you ultimately have unconscious core beliefs, or bottom lines, as they're also known. And it is this deep belief, such as I am useless, I'm lovable, people leave me, I'm not smart enough. And we all have our own ones. You can take a moment to reflect on, okay, well, what's the negative belief that I hold about myself? And a good way to do that is you can just complete the sentence, I am, or other people are. And people with low self-esteem will come up with some of the examples that I've just shared. So these situations that you face every day, going on a date, a rejection, like I said, making a date, making a mistake, they have the potential to trigger our negative core beliefs. The things that you do in your day, they can potentially trigger the negative things that you believe about yourself. So think of it like having a physical wound. This is a good way, I think, to help us understand it. Sometimes that physical wound might be numb. It's, you barely notice it or you forget it's there. But certain situations you remember, maybe you knock it, maybe you have to go and see the doctor again. There's certain situations where you feel this wound again, you remember it's there. And this is what happens with our psychological health as well, with our core wounds. Going on a date, making a mistake, facing rejection can trigger the emotional wound. Our core beliefs, they trigger the wounds, and suddenly it aches, it feels painful. That's when we're in distress. And of course, you spring into action to fix it. And I think that's the biggest difference with a physical wound to an emotional wound, is that with a physical wound, you usually know it's there and you tend to it. With low self-esteem, that's not really the case. You don't necessarily know that wound is hurting. It's that wound that's been triggered or activated. Not like when we knock our physical wound and we know, ow, that hurts. Okay, I'm going to go with this, so stick with me. But say I've got a physical wound on my leg and I bump it into the bed, that's a classic, and it hurts. And I will know, okay, yeah, that hurt my wound. I don't then focus on the bed for hours, angry at the bed. With emotional wounds, what we will do is it gets activated, it gets triggered, and rather than tend to that wound, our inner child, if you will, we will just focus on what triggered it. The date triggered it, the rejection triggered it, my boss looking at me in that way. I didn't receive a text that I was expecting. We focus on the trigger instead of the wound. And those wounds are there, these old, outdated beliefs driven by past experiences and the world that we've lived in so far. These beliefs, that whatever it is that you've been through, that have resulted in you not valuing yourself as a person, a friend, a colleague, a worker. These beliefs that have resulted in you not being able to trust others and holding certain beliefs about other people, how they treat you and the world and what you can expect from them. And these beliefs, they grow from experiences like being criticized a lot, being bullied, feeling left out, difficult households growing up in them, neglect, trauma, the list goes on. Even small repeated experiences like always being compared to others, to a sibling, can slowly build these beliefs about ourselves. And once these beliefs are there, they affect our opinions of ourselves and others, like I was saying, and love as well. I keep saying about other people, the world, ourselves, but also in love and relationships. We then have our minds made up and we see the world through this certain filter. And this is what really maintains our low self-esteem. because it impacts how we see situations. It impacts how we notice the world, the thoughts that we have. And that really keeps low self-esteem going. If we keep having the same thoughts, we keep getting the same results. And it can be difficult to spot because we often will see our thoughts as facts. But what we have to remember is because we have these beliefs, they are deep down influencing our thoughts, influencing how we're seeing things and interpreting things. So if something goes wrong, if someone rejects you, it feels like belief or proof that your belief is true. If something goes well, we ignore it or we say it was just luck. It's like wearing glasses that only let you see your mistakes, your weaknesses, the kind of negative in your life. And you will often hear me talk about rules. I mention this often inside our free community called the Self-Worth Reset. Go and check it out in the description if you want to go deeper than these podcast episodes. But the rules and conditions that people with low self-esteem put on themselves are having huge impacts on your happiness and your well-being. The rules for living is what these are often called. And these rules that you put on yourself are maintaining your low self-esteem. These are strict rules we create to stop our core beliefs from being proved true. Now, stay with me for this. Sometimes we hear this the first time and it doesn't just go in. It's the understanding of this is built over time as you start to learn more about how to change your self-esteem. But if you have a deep belief that you're not smart enough, you will have likely created the rule so that you're not exposed to that feeling of not being smart enough. So you may have come up with rules like, I must never apply for a new job because it will show I'm not smart enough. Same if you believe you're not pretty, you will have rules to try and be pretty enough. I must never let anyone see me without makeup. So we have the core belief that I'm not good enough. And then we have these rules of how to try and feel good enough. Yeah. So if you believe everyone leaves you, you will then have rules to try and not be left. At first, these rules can seem helpful. They push us to try hard, to avoid failure, but over time they become really exhausting and no one can be perfect and no one can please everyone. And when we break these rules or we feel like we're breaking the rule, which at times we all do because someone might see us without makeup or because we do make a mistake or we do eventually have to apply for a job, then in those moments it can feel like a disaster. You can feel really anxious that, oh my God, I'm not going to look good enough. I'm not going to be pretty enough. The old belief comes rushing back even stronger. And you'll only be okay if somehow you manage to, I don't know, work around that rule. With low self-esteem comes consistent, loud, negative thoughts about yourself or your life. This maintains low self-esteem. In the therapy that I deliver, we look a lot at the impact of your thoughts. So this is a big deal. Your thoughts affect how you feel and what you do. And like I say, people with low self-esteem often have negative, automatic thoughts. These are quick thoughts that pop into your mind without effort. So for example, someone doesn't text you back, they're ignoring me. You make a mistake at work, I'm terrible at my job. Someone looks serious or has a certain look on their face, they think I'm boring. These thoughts, they feel real and they feel true, but they're opinions, they're guesses, and they're often not facts. You're mind reading, you're assuming, you're falling into certain patterns of assuming you know what people are thinking, or you're focusing on the negatives, you're missing out the positives. And when these thoughts repeat again and again, they strengthen low self-esteem. Of course, the idea is that over time we can begin to challenge and change our thoughts and old beliefs and how we show up each day, because lots of times you show up in a way that is not self-loving. And that as well, we focus a lot on thoughts in this episode, but I really want you to think of behaviors as well. I want you to think of what you embody, because what can also keep your low self-esteem going is the things that you do every day. if you're allowing yourself to be around people who don't treat you well, if you're not loving yourself, if you're not meeting your own needs, if you are holding yourself physically in a way that says, I'm not good enough, because you walk into a room and shrink, these things, they send the message, I am not good enough, I'm inferior, other people are more deserving than me. But if I was to say right now, a good first step is for you to become aware of the ways that you think and embody low self-esteem. And do not underestimate this step. One helpful way to understand and work on your low self-esteem is to keep a log or to write down on reflection the thoughts that you have that keep you not feeling good enough, the negative thoughts that keep you in this loop, and the behaviors and the things that you do as well. And when you notice yourself then falling into these patterns, thinking something negative like I can't do this or I always mess it up, you write it down. Pay attention to how your body reacts. Maybe your shoulders are tense, your stomach is tight, your voice is quiet. Note any behaviors. Maybe you avoid doing something, you apologize too much, you notice that you go all fidgety around certain people. Remind yourself to somehow, like each day, I'm going to keep a log of these things. I want you to be able to see the ways that you personally keep, that sounds a bit blamey, it's not supposed to. So let's say, like, I want you to keep a log of the thoughts and the behaviors that may be currently maintaining your low self-esteem whilst you figure out the key changes that you want to make. Okay, doing this regularly is going to help you to see patterns in your thinking, in your behaviors. It's going to help you to notice what triggers your low self-esteem. And from that, you will begin to practice responding in calmer, more compassionate ways. And over time, this simple exercise of keeping a log, which we never want to underestimate, we start with recognition, makes it easier over time to recognize and change unhelpful thoughts and behaviors before they take over. I want to remind you that you are valuable. You are unique. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. There are things that I'm good at. There's things that I'm not good at. There's things that you're good at. There's things that you're not good at. There's things that we love about ourselves. There's things that we want to change about ourselves. And maybe when I say that, you have this automatic thought that says, I don't love myself at all. And if you're in that category of people, then that probably just shows you're quite at the beginning of your journey. And others of you will be like, yeah, there are things that I love, but there's things that I'm still struggling with. And that is okay. If you want to go deeper, what I suggest is that you go to the description of this episode. I have freebies. I have ways of working with me. You can join the Self-Esteem Reset call, my Telegram, where I drop little gems, my newsletter. You've got options, free options to really get going with this. And if you want to work with me and have me as your therapist, go to the description and you can check that out as well, because you've got different options. I offer ongoing therapy, I offer intensives, I offer single session therapy. So there's lots of things that I offer, and I don't want that to be overwhelming. So take your time, think about what it is that you're looking for, go to the description and stay in this community. That's what I would say. And before you go, please, if you've taken anything from this episode, please will you do an exchange of energy with me and subscribe to Lessons in Self-Worth. I'd love you to join the conversation, leave a comment or review. And if you're looking for ongoing support, like I said, check the links to join our free community or explore working with me directly. And I will be back here very soon.